Hey everyone, Rick here, and folks, bear with me if you can believe it. We are on day 5, the 5th consecutive battle report for, oh that's right, you guessed it, Battlefields of Mana. The story so far, these two warring nations, the imperialistic Lunar Knights of the Obsidian Eclipse, the Regal Guard of the Golden Solstice, met on the continent of Mana in their first showdown for control of this land. A land which the air swirls around you, emitting a mystic energy. They want to harness that mana power for themselves. They met in their first battle here in the Forest of Arcadia, won by the Regal Guard. Heading south, the remnants of the Lunar Knights made way for the Mistoak Forest, where they met the Regal Guard in the second conflict. This time, the Lunar Knights got their revenge. Then they headed all the way west to the coast, where there was a battle in the village ruins. The Regal Guard were kind of lured out there, hearing that the Lunar Knights were kind of, regaining a foothold. Potentially a loosely organized offensive was forming. They got there, and it was anything but loosely organized. The Lunar Knights pounced and won their third battle in the village ruins. Taken aback, the Regal Guard made way for a marauder camp, an abandoned marauder camp where they wanted to regroup. Well, the Lunar Knights, freshly remobilized, they'd just come off 2 consecutive victories, and guess what? Make that 3. That's right, battle number 4 in the abandoned marauder camp went to, once again, who? Oh, that's right, the Lunar Knights. Folks, it's time to find out where Battle 5 is going to take place. Now, there are just a couple caveats here, and that is, again, battles of equal to or less than 15 points do not include a warlord or sorcerer, and we're just going to implement one thing, and we haven't really had to enforce this yet, but I do just want to say that we will not repeat the same location consecutively. So I know originally we had rolled the Forest of Arcadia. That was fine. We went to the Mistoak Forest. Even though it was back-to-back forests, we said the third battle would not be forests no matter what it was. And now this time, just going forward, we just won't have the same exact location back to back. So if we roll a marauder camp again, we're going to re-roll. Also, no 3 of the same type of terrain in a row. So like we did forest and then a different forest, but it was still a forest. So the third one, no matter what, was not going to be a forest. So if we do a village and then a city, we're not going to do another village or city as the third one. But there's only one marauder camp, so whatever this is going to be completely new anyway. We are rolling. I noticed that green die was really hard to see. This one may be a little slightly easier. 10-sided die will determine where we fight. The 6-sided die, depending on if it's a tier 1 or tier 2, will tell us how many points the battle is going to be. Let's get this so you can actually see it. All right, here we go, folks. Where are we fighting today? It is... God. Oh, boy. Do we want to do that again? I'm already having second thoughts. Okay, so it's back to the Mistoak Forest and a number 4. So Mistoak Forest was tier 1. Number 4 is 15 points. All right, you know what? That's fine. I'm just going to lay it out differently. So here's the Mistoak Forest. We're going back. That's right. We're going back to the scene of where the Lunar Knights started this chain of victories. It happened here in the Mistoak Forest. We're going back. We're going back to the Mistoak Forest, size 15-point battle. I'm going to lay the forest out differently. This battle's going to take place in a different part of the forest, so it's not the exact same. I can't wait until we actually fight in a village, though, or these hills. I can't wait to bring out the hills. But we're back in the Mistoak Forest. All right, folks, 15 points. Let's set up terrain, and we'll be right back. Okay, folks, and this is terrain for a tier 1, which is a smaller forest. You just have to have 2 forest templates. So unlike a big forest, which is 3 or more. So I kind of spread them out a little bit instead of clumping them in the center. So again, 3 inches from the edge of the board. So a unit could skirt the forest on either end, and then there's this huge clearing in the center. So this may actually make for a decent scenario. And the way that this is kind of curved down here, and this was just kind of straight down the center. So yeah, it's going to be, I think, kind of interesting. This is going to be the first battle where we return to a battlefield that has already been fought. So we'll see how this goes. I'll be back when I have constructed the armies and have deployed. All right, folks, here we go. Battle in the Mistoak Forest, Part 2. I mean, this is a 15-point battle, the largest point value battle you can have, but still be small enough to not allow warlords and sorcerers. Yet look at what the Lunar Knights have decided to go with. So as you can imagine, if they're fielding this many troops, a lot of them are probably inexpensive, right? Well, we'll get to that in a second, because actually the Regal Guard were the ones who rolled higher to deploy first and then go first. So let's take a look at what they've selected first. We have a 2-point unit of swordsmen. Here we go. A 4-point unit of Flail Bearers, a 2-point unit of archers, a 2-point unit of swordsmen, and a 5-point unit of heavy cavalry. So what are they thinking here? Well, if you recall, basically all the prior battles, Lunar Knights really need to be very clever because for some reason they roll terrible in comparison to the Regal Guard. And the Regal Guard's like, you know, we roll so good, why don't we take some things that actually benefit from better rolls, like the Flail Bearers, who, if they roll as well as they normally do, those Flail Bearers are just going to absolutely tear stuff up. So hopefully will the heavy cavalry. Now they enjoyed the success their swordsmen had in the last battle, so they doubled up on swordsmen, and they brought a unit of their archers. You know, they stick those archers in these woods and it's harder to shoot back at them, but I don't even know if they're going to make it to the woods. They might just kind of stay back there and shoot from afar, which is why they went with an archer unit that has a longer 12-inch range. And as you notice, the heavy cavalry's on that flank. Gonna skirt those woods and hopefully come up behind or to the flank of the Lunar Knights. So look at this Lunar Knight army. Oh my gosh. What do they have? Well, you're gonna hear this a lot. A 1-point unit of peasant militia. A 4-point unit of mounted crossbowmen. 2-point unit of spears. 1-point unit of peasant militia, 2-point unit of spears, 4-point unit of mounted crossbowmen, and another 1-point unit of peasant militia. So they have a peasant militia unit on each flank to stir up trouble. They have 2 mounted crossbow units to run up and, you know, shoot from afar, but getting a +1 bonus to their dice for doing so. And then just this line. Peasant militia in the middle, 2 units of spears. This line should just barely be able to fit through these forests. Don't forget, in order to suffer the movement penalty, or also the cover bonus, the banner bearer has to be in the woods. But if like the last figure on the edge of a unit is in the woods, they don't suffer the movement penalty. So it's just long enough where either banner bearer should be in the clear as they move through here. But yeah, we'll see what their strategy ends up being. I know they just want to shoot a lot with their mounted crossbows, hold things up with these peasant militia, and hopefully get to doing some damage with those units of spears as well. All right, folks, that is deployment, and now we will be back after the conclusion of round 1. All right, folks, welcome to the bottom of round 1. This looks like quite a freaking battle, right? All right, folks, here's what happened. So Regal Guard went first. Of course, going first is kind of a disadvantage. You just kind of position yourselves. So that's what they did. Flail Bearers and archers back here moved the swordsmen up. These swordsmen just moved up and then shifted over to be slightly in front of the Flail Bearers, which ended up proving to be a decent target because this unit of mounted crossbowmen ended up targeting them since they couldn't see the Flail Bearers. That is why there is a missing swordsman there. In fact, there are 2 troops that were killed. First blood to Lunar Knights. The other being from the unit of archers. Eek! Because this other swordsman unit, instead of moving up and moving over, like this one did, you know, the woods were further out up here. So they decided to take full advantage of their movement. It will get them closer. Because these guys just want to get in combat. They have superior fighting ability, essentially, compared to these peasant militia and spears. But that meant the crossbows did take a shot at the only ranged unit for the Regal Guard, so that was an archer gone. And then the heavy calves shooting up the side there. We'll see if they end up going after those peasant militia or if they turn and try to come down this way. The problem is, and the Lunar Knights know this, the forest is not kind to the knights. They are going to have to, you know, try to find a way to get to them, which is going to be a problem. Otherwise, they may go for those peasant militia, which that's all they're there for, is to absorb some hits. So on the Lunar Knight side of things, that's exactly what happened. We moved up peasant militia on that flank, peasant militia on that flank, peasant militia right in the middle. The 2 units of spears connected together and moved up. So they're a little bit behind, but at least they're banner bearers, which is what ranged attacks are measured from center of banner bearer to center of banner bearer. So the archers, as of right now, without moving, cannot see those banner bearers. Though I think, are they in range? Oh boy, it looks like they would have just been in range too, but unfortunately they kind of hid behind these peasant militia. Which is a big deal, because even though the archers can maybe move slightly to get the line of sight they need, moving and then shooting is a penalty, so that hurts. Otherwise, yeah, the crossbows moved up. This one's now in the woods, so it's technically, even though this unit of swordsmen's way on the other side of the woods, since that crossbow unit is in the woods and those swordsmen are not, that is not a penalty to shoot through the woods. Only if the woods were in between both units and both units were out of the woods would that be a penalty. So crossbows did launch a shot on those swordsmen. These crossbows, it's half and half, 50-50. That guy there that crossbow unit is technically, the banner bearer is in the woods. So if these archers want a retribution shot at them, they will be giving them a cover save, the crossbows. And I think that's pretty much it. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Regal Guard respond to those shots fired, and we'll be back after round 2. All right, folks, I'm going to return to this format where I do a recap of each side's turn. Because if I wait till the end of the round to do both sides recap, I'm going to forget what the Regal Guard even did. So this is still turn 2, end of the Regal Guard phase, but before Lunar Knights have gone. And the reason I want to do that is because, again, I'm going to forget what they did if I don't mention it right now. Okay, so here's what they did. Close combat forces moved up. Now, it took a double move to get through the woods into those crossbowmen for these swords. And, of course, the crossbows got a free volley on them upon them moving into contact, so they took 3 wounds, which is actually very unfortunate, but not terrible. The crossbows are the big ticket items. Those are 4 points apiece. So yeah, the 2-point swords hopefully will do something there. I anticipate the crossbows breaking away though shortly. And then these swords use both of their moves to get into contact with these peasant militia. And in doing so, very clever, Regal Guard did a few very clever things this turn. And what they did was when they moved into contact, of course, you know, down here, each unit has to kind of slide 50-50 to get together. And that opened the door for the archers, who stayed put, got full shots on these spears, and took out a spear. Of course, the only benefit to spearmen is that, well, one of the only benefits is that they get to use those rear rank troops in close combat with their polearm. So every figure lost in that back rank really hurts them. So that is what happened there. The Flail Bearers, oh, we'll see if this was a mistake or not. They moved into the woods. They want to get up here for better or worse. Obviously, these crossbows aren't going to let them charge them. They're probably going to move back or do something. But in fact, let's just take a peek. 4 inches. Yeah, so they'll at least probably scoot back a ways. I don't know, maybe not. Maybe they'll take full shots. Because, of course, when they sit there like that, all of their shots are +1. But I really don't think they're going to sit there. No, I guess maybe they could. You know why? Because the Flail Bearers are going to need both of their movement actions, moving at half speed to get there. So it's not like they're going to be able to charge in and attack. So we'll see. We'll see. Anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves. So that's where the Flail Bearers went. Because either they're going to go after the crossbows or they'll be able to get up here. Because as you can see, this kind of blocked, this whole thing right in the middle blocked either side really from being able to get through there till this is resolved. Someone's going to have to come up here on the flank or something, and maybe that's what the Flail Bearers are going to try to do. Anyway, over here, look at this massacre. As you would expect, heavy cavalry just absolutely decimated these peasant militia, both with the collision hits they got when they first moved into contact with them, and then just straight up attacks. Now, unfortunately, you know what? Oh, boy. Yeah, attacks back from the peasant militia did do enough to kill a heavy cavalry, which was unfortunate for sure, but, I mean, good grief. So, but that unit is not long for this world. All right, so folks, that is Regal Guard turn 2, and then we'll come back at the end of Lunar Knight turn 2. All right, folks, now this is the end of round 2, so the Lunar Knight turn has now concluded. Very interesting. Oh my gosh. It always is, but I mean, especially this battle with all this going on right here, all the tactical maneuvering. So what I was thinking about doing was, you know what, I decided I'm going to leave the crossbows there. The Flail Bearers are not going to get a charge on them. They're going to have to use both movement actions just to get into contact. So that'll give them an opportunity to break away. But you know what? We had a unit of peasant militia here. I was going to wheel them here and keep them there so that it would be like a counter charge right into the flank of the Flail Bearers. And then if a unit is outnumbered on multiple flanks, one of the units can break away without penalty. Don't even have to roll off. So that's what I was considering doing, moving peasant militia into their flank when they moved in, and then the crossbows could then easily move out and then also fire. But then I thought, you know what, let's do that with this unit of peasant militia. They used to be in contact with these swordsmen. They failed their breakaway roll, so they did take breakaway attacks, but only a few, and the swordsmen rolled poorly, not a single wound on those peasant militia. Peasant militia got a free reform out of breaking away, and then moved up right here, just barely, a little gap there between the crossbowmen and themselves. So now, if these Flail Bearers do contact them and come like this, these peasant militia can move up just that little gap, and get into their flank and let the crossbows back out without penalty. Meanwhile, because that's why I wanted to save this unit of peasant militia, use their entire movement, moved all the way up here, because they're eyeing those archers, because they've got this pretty well sealed off. And we want to get to those archers. So, yeah, that's what this peasant militia unit's goal in life is now, is to get over there eventually. So I think we have this pretty much sealed up. So then these spearmen charged in. That was a charge into those swordsmen. And the swordsmen took some wounds out of that. Now they did attacks back. and did not end up doing a single wound in return. Isn't that insane? So they did take some casualties from that, and then this unit of spearmen moved up. It was hard to do, but they were able to get out of the way, move up there. Probably going to get charged by those swordsmen, but don't forget, one of the other benefits of being polearm is you do get to go first in the first round of combat. And so they will end up getting to go first against those swordsmen. These crossbows broke away. So they broke away. I can't remember if it was with penalty or without penalty. Either way, they didn't take any wounds. And then, even though they moved and shot, which is a -1 penalty, because they're crossbows, they would have been just, they were +1 anyway. So a +1 and a -1 negate each other. It would have been straight up dice, but they were shooting into the heavy cav flank, which is a +1. So it did end up being a +1 instead of, a normal +2. But they did a wound to another cavalry. And then that unit of peasant militia just braced themselves. So they're holding on for dear life up there. And yeah, that is where we are on Lunar Knights turn 2. This was the end of round 2, and we'll be back with Regal Guard at the end of Regal Guard turn 3. All right, folks, a lot of close combats in the Regal Guard turn 3. Let's start with shooting, though. I don't think anything moved except the Flail Bearers, unfortunately. Well, it's just interesting. I don't know if I'm misplaying them or what, but I wheeled them back straight ahead and moved them up. That's as far as they could go. It'll be interesting to see what happens next, if those crossbowmen shoot them from there or what. But from where they are now, they will be able to charge as long as they can scoot down that fraction of an inch, which, in the forest and moving half speed is already perilous enough. But they only need 2 inches, just a little over 2 inches at half speed, because that's an inch, to get to those crossbowmen in a charge, if the crossbowmen stay there, but I doubt they will. They'll probably back up. But anyway, I think that was the only movement. Otherwise, these archers shot into the flank of those peasant militia, killing 2. This battle was definitely more in favor of the Lunar Knights. Lunar Knights lost a spearman, but now that swordsman unit is cut in half. This swordsman unit is also hurting, and they managed to do something to the spears there. Just a wound, I think. And then, yeah, Heavy Cav wiped out that unit of peasant militia and reformed. So now their options are open. They can go after the spears or the crossbows. And now we'll see how the Lunar Knights respond at the end of Lunar Knights turn 3. Alright, folks, end of Lunar Knights turn 3, which means end of round 3, which means the game is half over, and this is what we're looking like. So here's what happened. The crossbows did back up slightly and allowed those peasant militia to reform, which allowed them to be right there. And that is where they are currently. And the crossbows then fired because the peasant militia did not get into contact. Even though the Flail Bearers will get a charge off on them, they're just there as meat shields. Those crossbows would not have been able to hit the Flail Bearers if they were in contact. So they stayed just out of contact. Crossbows hit. They only did a wound, though. These peasant militia moved up slightly. Combat here. Took out another swordsman, but took out another spearman. More contact here. Some wounds apiece. And then we moved up right there, actually, and hit them in the flank, which did, I believe, kill. I know we took out another one. I can't remember if it was 1 wound. I think it was 2 wounds or so. Yeah, I think it was 2 wounds on those heavy calves. So we'll see how the Regal Guard respond at the end of Regal Guard turn 4. Alright, folks, pretty quick turn 4 for the Regal Guard. Let's just go right to the fun part. This never has happened before ever in any game of Battlefields of Mana I've ever played. If you're familiar with Chessex dice, especially these smaller, I think they're 12mm smaller dice, they come in a brick like that, and there's 36 of them. I had to use all 36 dice for this combat. Why? Don't forget, Flail Bearers in the first round of combat, first of all, by default, they are 3 dice apiece. So that is 3, 6, 9. And then for the first round of combat, they have Frenzy. That's an extra die. So 10, 11, 12. They rolled 12 dice. 6s explode. They rolled like 5 6s. So that was 5 more exploding dice. And out of that, they rolled another 6. That was another exploding dice. And it all hits because it is only armor 1 for those peasant militia. So 2s are better. That was 18 hits. So the peasant militia had to roll 18 dice in defense, and that was all the dice. 18 dice for attack, 18 dice in defense. That's 36 dice. So out of 18 dice, the peasant militia did end up taking 6 wounds because they do have to reroll 6s because of their rabble disability. So, yep, they ended up taking 6 wounds. Only the banner bearer left. That is why they chose that unit of flail bearers. They absolutely crush. So that was the highlight for sure. Then these archers turned to face the peasants, did a wound there. We decided to brace here and here. We're in no rush any longer. So we think, pretty much this is how we want it to be. Them against them. Hopefully, the flail bearers will eventually get to those crossbows. And then, so now we're just bracing ourselves here and here. Better defense. And so we'll see what happens. Turn 4 for the Lunar Knights. But we turned and moved. Didn't get to close combat because it took both movement actions to do that. But we did a collision hit upon moving into close combat. All right, we'll see how the Lunar Knights respond. All right, folks, this is getting interesting. Bottom of round 4, we had these crossbowmen move over here and fire into the flank of the flail bearers, which was unfortunate because, that's a +1. So it did enough to kill another flail bearer. Of course, this militia, last man standing, braced himself. This militia unit just moved into contact, but took a free volley for doing so. Here, they traded a wound apiece, which was good for the Regal Guard, because cutting the spearmen in half meant a point, but they did lose. I should just take this out of here. I typically do. I take the movement tray out of there when we're down to the banner bearer. So that swordsman unit has 1 man left. This was much better. I mean, look at this. It's even Steven up here now. So I think the spearmen only did a wound. I'll have to take a peek at that. Or maybe 2 wounds. I can't. No, they only did a wound. So we'll see. I'll have to double check that. But in return, the swordsman did 3 wounds to those spearmen and cut them in half. Then these crossbows broke away without penalty. Got a free reform, charged up and reformed, and they have nimble so they can do that, and then fired into the flank of the heavy cavalry, and unfortunately took off 1 more heavy cavalry. So if the game ended now, Lunar Knights have 1 point, 2 points, 3 points, and I believe that's it, just for cutting those units in half. They haven't completely destroyed any units yet, but they have cut those 3 units in half, so that's a point apiece. The Regal Guard has completely killed 1 militia, cut 2 spears in half, so that's 1 point, 2 points, 3 points, half a point for doing half to these spears, but they're probably going to kill them. But so, believe it or not, Regal Guard are actually leading by half a point right now. If they kill off this guy, it'll be 1 full point. It'll be 4-3. But of course, then you have that whole mess right here. So we'll have to see. There's only 2 turns left. Well, it's closer than I feared. I was fearing for the Regal Guard. I still kind of am, but we'll see. We'll be back after Regal Guard turn 5. All right, top of turn 5 with the Regal Guard phase done. Not too good overall. The archers broke away without penalty, backed up, fired, did nothing, unfortunately. Heavy cavalry reformed, moved into contact, collision hits, did a wound, killed a single mounted crossbowman. Braced themselves there, braced themselves there. Flail Bearers didn't do a single wound this turn. Of course, the militia did not do anything back either, but that's it. Over to Lunar Knight phase, turn 5. All right, folks, this is the end of round 5. End of turn 5 for the Lunar Knights. So, as they have been doing, that whole breakaway reform and then get a flank shot off. Now, they failed to break away without penalty, so they actually took some wounds here. They're in danger of being cut in half. They did a single wound back to the heavy cav. Over here, I don't think they did a single wound to those swordsmen, but the swordsman did kill another spearman. Unfortunately, these spears did kill off that last swordsman there. Last peasant militia still braced himself here. These guys stayed right there, got a +2 shot, killed another flail bearer, and then kind of a stalemate up over here. We're moving into the last turn. Unfortunately, with that swordsman kill, and killing that flail bearer, that was another 2 points for the Lunar Knights. So it's 3.5 points, I believe, right now for Regal Guard to 5 points for Lunar Knights. Regal Guard can't lose anyone else, especially right now. There's probably no way, because they only have, 4 units on the board. And so Lunar Knights, to get any more points, would have to finish off a unit unless they kill this last archer. So that archer cannot die. They need to kill this peasant militia for a 0.5 point. And these flail bearers have to kill that peasant militia for the other 0.5 point. And then they also need to do a final wound to these to the back rank of that crossbow unit. And then it'll end in a tie, I believe, because then they'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Where am I missing somebody? I don't know. We'll calculate this all. Oh, that's right. There's only 3 peasant militia. We'll calculate this all later. We are heading into the final round, top of turn 6 for the Regal Guard. Okay, folks, we have a lot to talk about. I just finished out round 6 completely because the Regal Guard had a chance. They honestly really did. And it came down to just a couple of die rolls. So, on the Regal Guard phase, the Flail Bearers, again, failed to get that last banner bearer out of there. All they had to do, they would have won by 0.5 point if they would have killed him. And they were going to brace over here. They were going to brace with this swordsman against the spear, because there were 2 spears there. They were going to brace and also brace here, and because all they needed to do was finish off one last crossbowman, which they did with the heavy cav. Moved in collision hits. They did 2, or 3 or something. I think it was just 2. Got rid of that. So that was a point. And then they just had to get rid of 0.5 point more, and they would have been, in prime position to win, but they couldn't kill him. So they could not brace here, because then they needed the 0.5 point there. And they figured this would be risky, because if they lose an archer from the back, that'll be a point. Well, guess what? So they couldn't brace. They had to attack. They did not kill this back guy, and then they lost their back archer. So then this swordsman had one final shot to kill 2 spearmen. At the time, I think there was more units over here. So they couldn't brace either, so they did their attacks, and they were able to whittle them down to a banner bearer. But they got whittled down to a banner bearer. The good news for the Regal Guard, though, is on the Lunar Knights' turn, I think if they just would have braced everybody of their own, they would have won, because the Regal Guard was unable to get enough points, but the Lunar Knights got greedy. So they broke away here and suffered, I don't know if they suffered a wound or what ended up happening, but then they shot into there, which made no sense because they didn't have enough attacks to do anything. This was just greed. They wanted to whittle down the units more, even though they couldn't do much. So they killed one more cav here. They braced with this guy. These guys shot into the woods, where I realized this entire time that they were outside of the woods. The Flail Bear should have been getting +1 for a cover save. This last turn I gave it to him, so it didn't end up mattering because they didn't finish off this banner bearer, so there was no more points to be had there. These spears charged in, and that's where they really failed, because they only were able to do, they thought they would kill this banner bearer, they'd still have their banner bearer. No, they only did a wound. And then in initiative order, this banner bearer got to go before this banner bearer, so this banner bearer killed that banner bearer before he could even strike back. So that was a point. And then over here, they just braced themselves. Why? Because they had more to lose. If they would have attacked here, they were risking taking one more wound, and half a point would have tied the game. Because, folks, this is insane. This final score is insane. So here, let's calculate it. Regal Guard killed a point by cutting that unit in half of crossbows. Cutting that unit in half gave them half a point. A point. They got a point for cutting these spearmen in half. They got half a point for doing half or more to these peasant militia. They ended up getting the full 2 points for finishing off that spear unit. They got 1 point for killing that peasant militia unit. So that ended up being 1 point, 2 points, 3 points, 4 points, 5 points, and a half a point. 5.5 points of kill. The Lunar Knights killed 2 points, and that's the only full unit, and then it was half units, half or less. And they, look at this, they managed to keep 4 units still in play. These 4. So that's cut in half is a point. So 1 point, 2 points, 3 points, 4 points, 5, 6. Lunar Knights killed 6 points. Regal Guard killed 5.5 points. If that Flail Bearer would have killed off this last guy, that would have been a half point to tie the game. Kill off this guy would have been a half point to bring him to 6.5 and win the game by half a point. But as is, Lunar Knights are victorious, 6 points to 5.5 points. It does not get closer than that. That is absolutely insane. That Flail Bearer in the woods failing 2 turns in a row to kill that last peasant militia sealed the loss for the Regal Guard. I just can't believe it. And folks, here's something else that I can't believe. That the Lunar Knights have now won their 4th battle in a row and have absolutely now total control of the Mistoak Forest. And I have some stars here. And this was my original idea too. If a territory has been claimed, has had battles won by a single side 2 times or greater than the opposition, then they have officially been declared the controller of that territory. So here we go. So this is battle number 5 in the Mistoak Forest. This is where the victories all began for the Lunar Knights, and now they absolutely have continued to prosper in the Mistoak forest. So now this star sticker will go in the forest because now it has been claimed by the Lunar Knights. Can you believe that? 2 battles won by the Lunar Knights in the Mistoak forest. The Regal Guard have only won 1 battle so far. That was the first big battle in the Forest of Arcadia. Oh my gosh, this is nuts. This is getting out of hand. The Lunar Knights are in control of the south by the looks of it. Maybe once we start getting up here in the more civilized north with the fortresses, castles, the towns, hell, even that port city. But this is where we stand so far, folks. All right. Thank you so much for watching. I do truly appreciate it. This was day 5 of the 31 battle reports. Can you believe it? We still have 6 times, over 6 times the amount of battle reports to go. Until tomorrow.